Welcome to the Muddy Waters Podcast, where Mainers tell their stories.
Good afternoon, Maine. Just barely afternoon. Chuck Ellis here, host of the Muddy Waters Podcast. Thank you all for listening and watching. The Muddy Waters Podcast exists to help the people of Maine better understand what is going on in our state by interviewing people from around the state to hear on the ground what's really happening. Hearing from moms, dads, business owners, people running for office, and people in office. And today we're fortunate to have with us a candidate for a school board for MSAD-52, Nathan Mahalik. Thank you for joining. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, that was actually one of the better pronunciations of that last name. It's a mouthful. So
it's I don't think it's as common as some other last names like Smith and Jones.
Yeah, my great grandfather wanted to bring the Eastern European names over here. So.
Well, there we go. Hey, I think names in diversity of names. I worked in the bank, and I always used to enjoy a new name. Like I would always look at it, and I would try to pronounce it before I heard them tell me how to pronounce it, or at least think through how I would pronounce it, and then ask them, how to say it, and then I would try to say it as best I could. It was kind of one of the fun things, and I love the diversity of names. I know that there's some concern around other issues in our state, but I do like all the different kinds of names. But yeah, unique things. So you, obviously this is definitely the first time you've come on this podcast, but when I have people on, I like to, ask, kind of figure out before we get into the political side of things, which we do want to talk about, but like who are you? Like what makes up the person that is Nathan Mahalik? What's your past? And what's got you to this place where you've decided to run for office, get involved in the political process here in Maine politics, which is very calm and easygoing, right? We're all very happy with everybody else who we disagree with, but obviously just really turbulent right now. So why in the world would somebody want to get involved in politics now? So anyway, go for
it. Yeah. Those are all great questions. So basically who I am is first and foremost, I'm a dad. I've lived in Leeds for about 10 years now. My wife has lived here all her life. And we knew that we wanted to start a family in Leeds. I mean, this is where her family is. This is where the majority of our family resides, and family up the road. I mean, right over in Green. This is the place where we wanted to start our family. We built a house here, finished in 2019, I believe, but we lived with our parents while we were building the house. So I myself have been here 10 years in the town. For me, I didn't really want to get into politics. I know that sounds funny, but it was something that was more of a duty for me to make sure that my kids and their friends and my niece and nephew can just get an education system that is set up to educate the kids. I want to make sure that kids can learn in a safe environment. I want politics to stay out of our school systems, and I just saw more of that encroaching into our schools, and I wanted to kind of step up and do my part to be there for my sons, my 3 boys that I just want to raise to be men. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense. So, what have you done for work? Did I miss that or
Oh no, sorry.
No, you're fine.
So I was 14 years. Oh, sorry.
I just think of work for a man helps define who you are and where you've come from and all that kind of stuff. We're more than our jobs, but they do say a little bit of something about us, I think.
Yeah, of course. So I was 14 years with Hannaford. I tried college out of school, but it didn't really take for me. I tried a couple places, CM, KVCC, but school wasn't the way I learned. I'm a very hands-on learner. So I jumped right into the workforce. I worked at Lowe's for a bit, but Hannaford is where I really took off. And I was in leadership at Hannaford for 14 years, was a district trainer for departments. And I enjoyed that job immensely because I got to meet the communities in multiple different areas. So I worked Waterville, Rumford, Auburn, Lewiston, and Turner, and just seeing the different types of people, the different demographics, that was really where I found my passion. And it was just in customer service and getting to know people. And leading a team from the ground up is definitely something I've done multiple times. In Turner, especially where I finished my career, I mean, I had an awesome team. I had a wonderful team, great assistant, great shift leaders, and great customers. I mean, that's where I started to meet more of the community. So for Turner, Leeds, Green, that the majority, that's where they went to shop, and that's where I started to really engage with my community more, and that was a blast. But sadly, well, not sadly, it was sad to leave, but my wife got the opportunity to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. And we looked at the options of, okay, if she takes this job, she'll be working instead of her I want to say there were 12-hour shifts. She'd be working 5 days a week. And so that put a lot more on our plate and a lot more in the budget of daycare and how we were going to handle that. So we made a decision and we sat down and said, well, it looks like I'm going to be a stay-at-home dad. And that has been the biggest change in my life. And it's been the hardest job, but it has been the most rewarding. And I was so happy that my wife has made that possible for me to do that. It's pretty amazing. If I were to stay at Hannaford, my whole check would have gone right into daycare. And so it just kind of worked out that I was able to be there for my kids and be a stay-at-home dad, and it's been a blessing. It's been awesome.
So you just play video games all day, right? That's what it's.
Yeah. I take naps. That's the most fun. No, gosh, I don't remember what a nap even feels like.
Yeah.
No, it's so cool because I get to see my kids learn every day, and I get to be a part of their lives every day, and it's so awesome. Like each day there's something new. Especially with 3 boys, they will throw curveballs at me all the time. But
literal? I'm just kidding.
My middle child, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how old are they? What's the range?
So my son Lucas is 5. He's in kindergarten. My middle child Liam is 3, and my youngest Reese is a year old. And yeah, it's so cool. Reese is starting to come into his own personality. Which went from a peaceful, calm youngest sibling to I'm picking up after my brothers and becoming a wild child now. So it's
Well, you definitely got your hands full, and I think it kind of goes against some of the preconceptions that sometimes people have about staying at home, and I think it's a huge task. And I think like one of the you've highlighted something that this has nothing to do with your candidacy, but I'm just going to say it because like there. The amount of the cost associated, especially with like sending kids to daycare, paying for a second vehicle, and all the other things, the clothing that's required, the money that's required to go to work, all the things that's connected to having that second job. The fact that like the second job is the higher tax bracket money because we have a progressive tax code, which means your first 25,000 basically barely gets taxed. I mean, being not exact here, but we'll say the first 25 barely gets taxed. The next 25 gets taxed at a higher rate. So it's not like if you get up into a higher tax bracket, all of your income is taxed at such and such a rate. It's based on the segment of income. So that second person's income is the higher taxed income, if that makes sense. And a significant portion of it ends up going to taxes. So when you factor that in with the daycare, with the additional cost of a car, with all the other additional things, like a lot of people are having two parents working in order largely to pay for daycare, the car, and these other expenses, and they net like just a little bit of money. And in the meantime, their children are not, they don't have their parents as readily available for them, and it's a huge strain on the family. And so I definitely wanted to say I applaud you for like having that, knowing hey, she's got the ability to make the real money, and so the best thing for my family is for me to stay home. So I think that's great, by the way.
Yeah, it's been a huge blessing. I actually get to coach T-ball this year. I did a little bit of assistant coaching last year, but I get to do T-ball coaching this year, which I'm stoked for. It's funny to watch those kids like when they first started out. When that first ball gets hit, they're all just going to chase after the ball. There's no organization to it. It's just madness. But it's cool to see kids get so excited about sports. So I'm really excited about that this year. But like you said, with the financial aspect of it, I mean, my wife and I, we didn't just sit down and say, this is what we got to do. We actually met with a financial advisor, and, really broke it down for us. So if anybody is looking at that route, and I know I'm getting a little off topic, but I always like to share insight with people. If anybody is looking to do that route, definitely look at that, because if you can get a parent in the home and be there with your kids more often, and I'm not saying that it's that easy, but if you have the ability to do it, I would say to go for it, because it is the biggest blessing you could ever have. It's great.
Yeah. No, and I think it gets at like what we need to be doing when we get into what you're talking about next, which is putting kids first,
Yep.
right? Like we need to be
Exactly.
focused on what is in the best interest of our children as a state, as school boards, as parents, right? What is in the best interest of our kids, and how do we accomplish that task? So with all that being said, right? Like you're running for school board for MSAD-52, which is the school in Leeds, or you're from Leeds?
So the schools themselves are all spread out. So you have a couple schools in Green. You have Tripp Middle School, Levitt Area High School. My sons will go to Leeds Central School, and they absolutely love. Lucas loves his teachers there. I mean, we've been blessed with two amazing teachers, Miss Plossie for his pre-K, Miss Phillips for kindergarten. They are an absolute godsend when it comes to teaching. I mean, they pour their hearts into their jobs, and that's been the best thing for my son, to see him come home and be excited about going to school, and they make that happen for him. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it in particular? I think you said that or I guess, what's your platform? What are you running on? I think we labeled this episode "Lasting Legacy" with you, obviously, as the candidate.
Yep.
And that kind of is your like mantra. But what are the primary biggest issues that you're running on? What do you want to change? What do you want to fix? What do you want to accomplish? Obviously, outside of making sure that your child is taken care of, but like what are you looking to accomplish here?
So what I want to see is preparedness for all students. And what that means is we have this emphasis that we want to try to prepare them social and emotionally, right? But that's not preparedness. That's a life skill that we gain in school and at home. What preparedness means is actually getting them ready for the next step in life. And that's focusing on the basics. We need to get education back to the basics. That's reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history, all the basic essential skills that these kids need. And then I want to see us try to focus on opening the trades back up. I know that MSAD-52 utilizes the LRTC and Central Maine Community College for some outsourcing for trades, but I'd like to see that grow more in home if possible. I'd like to review budgets to see if that's something that we can invest in. But the student focus needs to be student success and student preparedness. They are our future, and we need to make sure that they feel when they walk out those doors with that diploma that they are prepared for what comes next. And I think we tend to focus on the wrong things in school. And it's good to care for a child's heart. It's good to care for a child's mind, but the education system right now needs to be focused on student preparedness in knowledge. It's not there to fix the healthcare crisis or the mental health in the state of Maine, because, and this is a hard thing to say, but there is no cure for the mental health crisis in the school systems. There's no fix for that. So it needs to be simply focused on student preparedness when it comes to the basics.
And what are the, like, if you want to say, like, what does that look like? What does it look like to shift that back to, because I think we talk about on this podcast a lot, the need for getting back to the basics as well, like reading, writing, arithmetic, as you've said. We're in opposition to the current chair of executive director, whatever the heck her title is, Pender Macon of the Maine Board of Education. who seems to believe that those things don't matter because of AI somehow, which doesn't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense, and that those things need to take a back seat to social emotional learning. But like, what is it? Yeah. So what are the things that we need to? How do we fix? I guess that's kind of the question. Is like, obviously, like what you're kind of saying is broadly, we need to shift our approach from this, kind of like, I guess the current approach is more focused on like social issues and social emotional learning, but like, and less on education, the basics. But what does that look like? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a solid question. So when we look at it from a school board standpoint, I cannot change state legislation, and I can't change federal law. That's not something that I'm getting into. We're in small politics. What I can do is review a budget, which right now is $37 million for MSAD-52, and I can look at the dollar value of that and say how much of this actually gets back to the students. Because when you look at the average for the state of Maine, the state of Maine, I believe it's up to $20,000 per student is what goes directly to them, right? So with our budget of 37 million, what are we spending this money on? And does it directly impact the students' success? Are we investing in the right things? Is technology going to be an answer for their success, or is it going to be a cheat we give them? And I don't think technology is something that we should deny later on. I think, like as you stated with AI and everything else, kids should have exposure to some things, but I don't want to see pre-K and kindergarten students with laptops and iPads used in the classrooms when they need to be focusing on writing, reading, and the basics. Start with the basics, and then maybe later on in high school we can introduce certain things. But then when it comes to high school education, what happened to home economics? What happened to shop class? What happened to teaching a kid how to change the oil in their car so that if they need to, if they want to save money later on, they already know how to do that. Changing a tire, simplest things, right? Simple things that we don't think about that could be applied in education in our own schools. And you can't tell me we can't find a mechanic or a farmer who wouldn't love to stop by with a tractor or a car and tell these kids how it works. Because I've talked to them. I've discussed it with them. I mean, I was out knocking doors the other day, introducing myself to people, and it was such a joy to see how many of these community members want to be active in their community and want to support our school systems. And I think if we ask the right questions and if we build a community again, and we rely on our community, we can see those people show up for our kids every time and take the time to teach them these life skills, because we're so focused on the social and emotional piece, the heart of the child, which belongs to the parent and should be skills that they themselves learn in the school system with their friends. And the mind of the child should be something that education is focusing on. Knowledge, the wisdom and the principles come from the parents and their mentors, right? Education should be just focused on preparedness for students. And I'm sorry if I wrapped there, but
No, that's great. I think one of the, there are opposing ideologies at work in our world at this point, and so it can't be avoided. So the other side of the coin, right, that sometimes is presented is that, well, what if parents? I think we've established it. This is not anti-monopoly, antitrust, but we've decided that we've created an antitrust environment when it comes to parents and schools. And so, like, the other opposing view seems to be, well, we don't trust parents to do the heart side, so we're going to do that. And what do you think about that?
So that's another part of my campaign, and it's nothing that, I have always lived my life with the mindset of live your life the way you want to, and I will live my life the way I choose to. It's actually kind of what I've seen from Leeds. It's like live and let live. That's what I've seen in Leeds in the community. my wife asked me a hard question the other day, and a lot of these questions get presented to me. When it comes to protecting a parent's rights, I cannot say that I stand for one parent's choice over another. Because when it comes down to it, if I'm going to say that a parent has the right to parent their child, then every parent needs to learn, live, and fail a lot of the times, because that's what parenting is. You give them the opportunities to fail, but give them the opportunity to step up. If teachers are seeing that they're not getting help from parents to step up and parent, we can't just say, well, we need to shut it down completely, right? Those conversations need to be had with principals, reaching out to parents, sitting down with them, discussing their child's individual needs, and allowing the parent to step up and do the right thing. We need to empower parents in our community to parent. But if we remove their ability to do so, they won't have the opportunities to do that, just that. If we continue to put things in place like Chapter 117, where secrets can be held from the parents, if parents don't know what's going on with their child, how can they support their child? How can they step up and be there for their kid? They can't. They can't. The knowledge of what's going on in their child's life is a parent's direct line to them. Because as they get older, we all know what happens when we become teenagers, right? We start to kind of push back or pull back from our parents, and their friends or their teachers, their mentors. That's our lifeline a lot of the times to our child's hearts and minds. What's going on with them? What have you seen in their lives? If we start asking our community to be a community again and communicate with each other and really talk about what's going on in our child's lives, this community could be so much stronger and so much better, because it does take a village to raise a child. It really does. And I think cutting off a parent's lifeline to supporting their kids is not the answer. Chapter 117 had the wrong things are done with the best intentions. We know why Chapter 117 was put in place. People thought that there are parents out there that are trying to overstep or do the wrong things for their child. So there's abuse that we need to look at, and that, there needs to be a place where a child can go to feel safe. But again, it goes back to what's good for the majority of kids. What is good for the majority of parents that want to do the right thing? If you look at a small minority that is doing the wrong thing and you place them on a higher pedestal and say, this is all parents, you have cut off the parent's ability to step up and parent.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things that I found so I ran for house twice, state house twice. And the second time, I think both times I was focused on education, but the second time I did some research, and not that I didn't do any the first time, but I did some research specifically to put out some material to say, this is kind of why I'm running. And so I wrote this, I wouldn't call it an article, but I wrote an op-ed, I guess, for my own blog that I shared with people. And in doing that, I came to, I was not surprised to find, I should say, the most significant factor in determining the success or failure of a child is parental engagement and involvement, right? So we need to, the idea of cutting parents out, and kind of treating them as in an oppositional way, especially as you point out, when kids are in high school, when they already are looking to rebel against their parents, is a recipe for disaster, right? It's not going to lead to positive results. And the other interesting thing that I noted, because you mentioned wanting to look at some budgets and make sure money's going where it should be going. One of the other factors is our teachers, right? And the quality of the teachers. And one of the challenges we have here in Maine to the quality of the teachers is the teachers being able to live on what they're making. And I don't know what it is there. Down here, it's a little bit more challenging for teachers to financially make it. And typically it ends up being a liberal. I think it's seen as a, I'm a conservative. And so typically conservatives are all like, we want to slash the budget, pay them less. Right. I'm not necessarily there on the teachers. I am there on some of the administrative elements.
Yep.
We'll say, but like Maine ranks somewhere around 40th in, I think it's like 36 to 38th. This is 2 years old data, but it's probably not much different in terms of the how much we pay our teachers over against the national average. And then also on top of that, Maine is one of the most expensive places to live.
Yep.
And interestingly, we spend, as you said, I don't know if you said this before we started or during the podcast, but Maine spends on average somewhere around like $20,000 per student, right? Which is like in the top 9 or 10 or 8 or whatever of the amount of money we spend per child, but it's clearly not going to the teachers. So where's it going?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I was talking about what directly affects the student, what has direct impact with the student, the teacher does. So the money should be going to, one, paying for the staff, the teachers that are there, that are invested in the child's life every single day they go to work. Because let's be honest, teachers, that job is not just a job, it's a passion. They want to teach kids. And my son has, as I said, my son has had 2 amazing teachers that have made such a wonderful impact in his life. He shows up to school excited to go to school because of them, because of what they have done for him in the school system. Now, if we look at, as you said, the administration piece, we need to look at what actually doesn't impact our child. We need to rate those things. If it's not getting directly to the students, why are we spending money on it? I don't know the superintendent personally, and I don't want to say anything negative about her because I have not had the opportunity to discuss too much with her or work alongside her in any capacity. But I would like to know, straightforward, what teachers are making in comparison to the administration piece, because teachers are directly with our students. Now, I do know for a fact that our superintendent right now is making roughly $145,000. And that, to me, I'd like to see the difference between that and a teacher and then the administration. And what's the return on our investment from the superintendent? Show me what your success is. What have you done for the school? Because I know what the teachers have done. I know the teachers are working hard every single day to educate our youth. I want to know what the administration is doing, because if we're not seeing a return on that investment, then we need to look at other options, possibly. Like if they're not directly impacting our students' lives in a positive way as well, if we are paying them for something and we're not getting a return on that investment, if our taxpayers are spending money on something that is not positive, not providing a positive impact on our students, then we need to look at where we can trim the budget.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's interesting too, I don't know if you've looked into this at all, but like one of the things that I think I've heard from directly from teachers that I know, but also from other people kind of reporting that there are some people who think with some of the issues that obviously you're taking with the direction that education has gone, and I'm with you on those, that the issue has to do with, like, we'll say, activist teachers, right? And I would say that while there are some activist teachers out there, it's largely being driven not by the teachers themselves. The teachers just want to teach.
Yep.
They just want, that's why they got into this. They got in this to teach the kids. They love the kids.
Yep.
Instead, it's the administration. So not only is the administration, are we questioning whether or not we're getting a return on investment for our teachers, for administration, as you mentioned, but also they're the ones that seem to be getting in the way of our teachers teaching. And so that seems to be like, well, there's a lot of money that we're spending, and you're doing the exact opposite of what I think the people actually want, because it doesn't matter where you fall in the political spectrum, left, right, or center. You want our children to be educated, obviously, right?
Yes.
Like you may want, there may be some people that want some socio-emotional learning built in. They may want some political, whatever, built in, but ultimately what they want is the children to be prepared for life, right? Like everybody has agreed there. And we seem to be missing the mark. Maine, ranks somewhere in the 40s, low 40s. I've heard people say dead last, depending on which organization you're looking at. And so what's happening is clearly not working. So I just want to say, like, thank you for making the decision to run for a school board and city council, county commissioner. These are some of the roles that are just so underappreciated in our society. They're very volatile. You have to deal with a lot of anger from your neighbor. So you're really putting a target on your back in your community in order to be able to try and positively influence our children. So thank you for doing this really thankless job in a lot of ways that definitely does not pay, assuming you get elected. We're hoping you do, but assuming you get elected, it's not going to pay anywhere near. If they pay at all, it's like a small stipend.
We get a stipend for gas, but it's nothing I'm taking. So
right.
I mean,
So
I
it's
don't need that.
yeah, it's not even in bigger cities like Westbrook. I think it's which is where I live. It's it's a pittance, just not worth. Not worth much of anything. Not worth the amount of time that you end up spending, going to meetings and having to sit and listen to people, which I think is great that we have a society where through school boards are recorded. People can come, they can discuss, they can ask questions and they during the public comment, but you have to sit through that. And sometimes those are really long. Sometimes those can be really contentious meetings. I actually went to one of your board meetings. And a little while back, I had Anthony Showstack on the podcast after, and I met him there. He's a really, really great guy. So hopefully you can get on and help him out in advancing policy that actually is focused on. I when I was running in the past, I basically said I'm interested in policy that works in the real world, not something that sounds good on paper. And there's a lot of a lot of the stuff that's happening in our schools and being presented in legislature and at every level is stuff that sounds good, but practically just it has a negative impact. And so we want policy that actually helps, kids. I think you talked about the trades, and trades are so undervalued and looked down upon by our society, and yet and partly because of that, we don't have enough people to do those types of jobs, right? This is areas where there's a lot of opportunity for kids to be able to make a decent living and take care of their family if only they could learn a trade. And also, I think that home ec thing that you mentioned would be really helpful, because one of the other challenging elements of running a business, not only having the skill to be able to do the job, right, but then secondly, being able to know how to manage finances, to be able to manage your budget and figure out what you can afford and what you need to charge in order to be able to make money, because you got to feed your family and all that kind of stuff. And so anyway, the really valuable things that we just need more of in our society, and sadly there's been an overemphasis in getting psychology degrees. I'm just being a little facetious, but
I get what you're saying. I get where that comes from. It's so funny. When I'm glad you brought up Penner Macon at the start of the conversation, because I think, as I said before, the wrong things are done with the best intentions. I get where they're coming from, and I see so much heart in a lot of people that want to push out legislation it's coming from a good place in a lot of ways, but this isn't. Because if we look at where social emotional learning started in, I believe it was early 2015, I believe is when we started the push for social and emotional learning, we dropped from 16th in education dramatically at the start of that. And if we look over the past 20 years or so, we see that Maine's education has a 20% increase in spending and a decrease in education. So we throw money at the problem. We throw ideals at the problem, but we don't fix the problem. And it all stems from wanting to do the right thing, but not doing the right thing to get there. And I think that we need to really look at what works. What is the job of schools? It's to educate. That's all it is. Get back to basics. Whatever the generation before me gave me in the 90s prepared me for my life now. And the trades, again, as you stated, they're looked down upon, or they were. I think we're starting to shift that mindset in a big way. I think people are starting to see that. My father-in-law is one of the greatest mentors in my life. And if you were to hand him a high school exam, he'd probably bomb that thing. I mean, so would I. But he is not a man of knowledge. He's a man of wisdom. Wisdom is the biggest gift you can give any kid today, because they will carry that forever. You don't have to give them all the knowledge in the books. Provide them with the opportunity to find every avenue of life and prepare them for every avenue of life. If they want to go to college, great, good for them. Go do that. But focus on the kids that don't and don't learn that way. Prepare their road for the path they want to take. Prepare them for any pathway they want to seek. And if it's the trades, good. Let's make it happen. Let's find the avenues for these kids and get them in the trades. If it's college, great. Let's get you to a college that works for you. I think we just put kids in a cookie cutter and say they're all the same. And if we teach them social and emotional learning, they'll be prepared. I'm sorry, but my son Lucas is different than my son Liam and my son Reese. I will not approach Lucas the same way I will approach Liam, because they respond differently. If you try to treat kids the same way with social and emotional learning, you're not going to get the same result from every kid. You're actually hindering them. Because we try to fix mental health in the school system, and there is no fix for mental health in the school system. Mental health starts at home, and you should leave it with the home and healthcare professionals. Parents and healthcare professionals make those decisions. Schools cannot. They can be supportive. We can look at, forgive me, I'm going to forget the acronym. I believe it's IEP, and
Individual Education Plan.
Thank you. Yes.
Yep.
We have, I believe, 21% of our students in Maine right now on IEPs. And I remember back when I was going to Monmouth, I went to Monmouth up until 8th grade. We had a special education class. You had another classroom for that. It didn't leave the kids out of gym class. It didn't leave the kids out of recess. It didn't leave the kids out of art class or anything else. But those kids needed extra help. And they got that help in a classroom that could give them the attention to do it, to succeed. If we continue to drag kids to the finish line, we're just shoving them out in the world without any tools to actually deal with what's out there, to actually face the world and be happy and be successful. We're just dragging them to the finish line.
Yeah, what's interesting is I've also heard from other people who engage to some degree or another in the educational process. I'm being vague intentionally. That this emphasis on socio-emotional learning actually, like, one of the things that it does is it causes children to think way too much about certain situations and things that happen to them, right? And so they overhype it, over focus on it. And I think it contributes to this like victim mentality that exists in our world, where we're far too focused on. Imagine if somebody in a war started to think about the emotional impact of the grenade that went off near him. I think he'd probably get shot. Right. Like and I say that just in part because I think like we think far too, again, as you've kind of said, like, I think we need to let the psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever, the doctors in those fields, and the parents kind of figure out the emotional health of the child, not the education system. Obviously, if the education system identifies something where it looks like there's a problem here, letting the parents know about that is okay.
Huge.
Right. But like going beyond that, I think is dangerous. And the analogy that I was using earlier is simply because one of these things, we need to be preparing kids for life, not like emphasizing and spending all this time thinking about things that are not going to actually make them ready for what they need. And so, like, if you're in a war, in a battle, and you get emotionally, then you're like, you're in trouble, right? Because
Yep.
another one's coming, right? And so we need to make children resilient by not essentially, it seems to me from everything I hear, I don't have kids in the system, but I talk to a lot of people who do, and it seems like it ends up babying and coddling children rather than teaching them that you've got to figure out how to figure that out. And if we have to work with the parents to help you, have healthy, the parents need to be the ones, again, with their doctors, ensuring that the kids have a healthy way to handle difficult situations, rather than that being something that's involved in the school system, because it's a distraction. It gets in the way of education.
It does.
Right.
And I'm so glad you mentioned, like, we when you were talking about the grenade piece, it made me think we are presenting the world's problems to our children who are powerless to do anything about the world's problems.
Yeah.
We present them with issues in the school system. And I don't want to get too political with the ICE walkouts and stuff like that, and certain stuff, but we present children with the world's problems, and then they are powerless to do anything to fix those world's problems. And with social emotional learning, they're presented with their friends' problems, or their friends' parents' problems. And again, powerless to do anything about it. And we wonder why these kids are so anxiety driven, and why mental health is a crisis in Maine, because it's not their burden to bear the world's problems. That's our job. Until we pass the torch, and until we feel they're ready to take on the role of being the shield against the world's problems, it's our job. We carry that weight. We carry that burden. I mean, I remember seeing the picture of the old dog standing over the puppy, and the puppy's looking up at him like, "Dad, are you okay?" And the dog's got arrows in his back. And he just looks down and says, "Yeah, I'm good." Like, that's our job.
Yep.
We are supposed to stand over them and protect them until it's their turn. And right now, it is not their turn. It's ours.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, we shouldn't be using them as a shield or a weapon,
Right.
in the political conversation on either side. Especially like when we're trying to have children help address problems that adults can't figure out.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Like, we need to figure it out as adults, and let the children, to a degree, be children. Yeah, we want to prepare them, but we don't. Getting them involved in this, in that kind of a way, it seems highly inappropriate. But especially depending on the age. Like, again, as kids get older, you're almost 18, you're about to, be participating in the political process. I think that's but like, again, the way in which you teach, even, about the political process, should be civics, teaching like how our country was founded, what the laws are, and like the foundation of the Bill of Rights and things like that. And how many kids actually? I'll tell you, I grew up and I actually had a couple of decent like teachers, because I was at the tail end of a bunch of like old teachers who are getting ready to retire, and I learned all of my history classes were with them, and so I got a decent education as it relates to civics. However, it was all focused on national politics, right? I don't remember a single thing about state or local politics, and so we don't teach civics. We don't teach the importance of those things. And I think our society is failing for it. So I think we should teach physics, but we should not be trying to use children to create these political stunts and tools to be able to like make the news, essentially.
Right. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. We need to teach our kids the successes and the failures of the past, because otherwise, as the saying goes, you're doomed to repeat them. If we're teaching them about what we did and why we chose this route in our politics, why our forefathers chose this government over any other, And then even if we want to show them the politics of the world in history, or now they call it social studies, if we want to show them other parts of the world and other politics, that's great. I think we should always be adapting to different things. We should always be trying to make our country better and our state better. But introduce them to history. Introduce what worked, what didn't, why we did certain things back then, how we made mistakes, and how we succeeded in the end. And if our kids don't understand what we did in the past that doesn't work, they will be doomed to repeat those mistakes in the future. And again, that comes down to preparedness. That comes down to prepping a kid for the future. They're going to be the ones that make the legislations later. They're going to be the ones that make the policies. They are going to be taking care of their children someday. Let's give them the tools to do just that. Let's teach them about the world, but let's teach them about what worked, what didn't.
So how do I vote for you? I can't. Unfortunately, I'm in Westbrook, but no, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate your perspective, your approach. The sacrifices that you're making for your family and within your family, but also in running for school board. You'd have my vote if I had the capacity to cast it. But how do people vote for you? Who can vote for you? When is your election? How do people get in touch with you? All those things.
Yeah. So right now, so the election is April 3rd, and then there'll be a town meeting April 4th. But the election day is April 3rd. I believe it's. Let me check my form here. It's 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the town office. But it's just Leeds voters.
In Leeds, yeah.
Yeah, just Leeds voters, because I'm running for the Leeds seat. But again, I'm going to be representing my Leeds community, but I'll also be representing the students of MSAD-52 and what their needs are. And I'm going to be representing the taxpayers, making sure their money goes where it needs to go. But that'll be, like I said, April 3rd at the town office, 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. There is early voting going on right now. So if people can't make it, like actually my father and mother-in-law are going on a trip, and they are actually for the first time doing an absentee ballot. That is going on right now, early voting till March 31st. That's the cutoff for early voting. I myself prefer showing up in person though, but
if you're home and you're thinking, I prefer showing up in person too, but you have some free time, why not bank your vote and make sure nothing can possibly come up to make you not show up on the day of the election,
right?
Because you've already voted.
Right.
This is the system that we have. Use it, people.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
Sorry.
No. I'm glad you brought that up. I think we saw a snowstorm kick up for one of our local elections recently that kind of threw some numbers off. So that's huge. I think if we have a tool in place, use it. And that's the best way to do it.
Once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for doing the thankless job of running for our school board in particular, but being involved in any way for political office. And we wish you luck. And I can't wait to hear the good results that we're hoping will happen when you get elected on April 3rd. So
awesome. Well, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. All right. Have a great day. And everybody else, you'll see us back here tomorrow. We're going to have our Tuesday update with John Featherston. All right. Thanks.